My politics have changed drastically through this crazy metamorphosis from the time that I don't want to really count the time that we lived under the same roof because I was too young to really have politics. I had things that I heard and took at face value like everybody else at that age, just about everybody else. Um, I will start my life at about, or 20, let's say 20, when I genuinely started to have thoughts of my own on this matter. Before that, all of my thoughts that mattered were about religion, and if they were political, they reflected off of there. Um, I'm accused of that now, but this is actually not the case. Um, I was a Marxist Leninist for a while. I was going through what a lot of poor kids go through, which is life's not fair. Like I said, oh no, I didn't send that. That's when I typed that and I decided not to, and that's what I said to the video. Life's not fair, and damn it, it's supposed to be. And read Karl Marx, particularly the Communist Manifesto. I think I read it twice, and I'm like, yes, this can work. And doubling down, I went off and I joined the Industrial Workers of the World in my early 20s, and well, I don't want to get into what anyone who knows that kind of thinking knows. One, people don't go into it with the most noble of motivations, whether they think they do or not, and it's ultimately not that different from when someone becomes a skinhead. It really isn't. And I question people who are over 30 and still embrace that stuff, or at least 35. Um, I hear motion. Hey.
Hello.
A zap. Ugh. Yeah, I don't know.
I am playing Ready or Not right now. It's very good.
You what? Oh, has it been an hour?
Has it been?
I don't know, I'm asking you.
Uh,
I wasn't paying attention. I was paying attention to what I'm fiddling with.
yeah, I can start getting ready.
Oh, no hurry. We can go at noon if you want. I'm not in a hurry.
I mean, I would prefer that.
Let's do that.
Okay.
Okay.
Ready or Not rules. It's a game where you play as a SWAT commander, commanding 4 of the SWAT officers, and you're put through various...
What's a slut officer? Is that like an officer that, I'm not very mature. Anyway, go ahead.
What's your recording?
I was talking to my stepsister. She asked me a question that was like, it's a political one, and I don't mind answering, but I don't want to type that much. So.
Oh, yeah, I did see a wall of text on your,
Yeah. Answer it in the video. So I already made one that was a caveat. And, this thing.
Sure, yeah. Am I interrupting you?
Yeah, a little bit, but that's okay. I kind of wanted to pause for a second anyway. Want to get up one more time. And plus I kind of liked that you were in the background talking. Because I'm going to leave it in the video because we were talking about kids,
Ah, yeah.
Yeah, so basically I'm going to cut this down to like about, 30 seconds or so and say, that's the one I was talking
Alright, well,
about.
do your thing. I don't want to interrupt you any longer.
That's fine. All right. Actually, yeah. Yeah, that was him. But anyway, I'll just real quick. So, I couldn't tell you when I stopped being a communist to nail it down to a day, but I got less and less loud about that part of my, for lack of a better word, identity, as I learned more about the world and how it was indefensible, and still very much considered myself a leftist, going up until, I'll even say 2014, 15, something like that. Kind of hard to measure. And what the hell does this have to do with Donald Trump? Well, not that much. That's the thing. The anti-Zionism is something that, of course, I'd considered converting to Judaism when I was as young as 18, and was not in the cards. It's not an easy thing to do. And when you don't even know how to pay your rent, yet, when you don't even know how to keep a job yet, conversion is just definitely. So I put that off, and then I just started to, anyone that tells you that the Jewish state and the Jewish religion are not related to each other is full of shit, or they don't know what they're talking about. These things are intimately connected. Whether so, I knew about Zionism. I used to read Menachem Begin when I was like 20 years old. I used to read The Siege by, I don't remember his name. And I read anything I could get my hands on for about 2 years about Israel. And then I just kind of like, no, okay. When I decided not to go through with conversion and went on with my life and said, well, that was just my reaction to Christianity when I was growing up. Because when Christianity proved to be, completely based on nothing, that I just fell into that without even thinking, and I just convinced myself of that, and it nagged on me my whole life. This little irritating, like somebody would like completely mispronounce something in Hebrew, and then I would say, no, it's not pronounced that way. They would use the word ch when they meant ch, and it would upset me. I would have to like really compose myself and say, it doesn't matter, it's not important. Fuck you, it's not important. It's the language that you want to speak. And I noticed whenever somebody said something about Jews or Judaism or the Jewish history that was just like blatantly wrong, it would, no matter how, any time, the whole time, it was just like, I don't know why. And, I try not to get into esoteric thinking. I really don't. I was probably Jewish the whole time. And what I mean by that is I found out some very interesting things about my background genetically, and basically I was probably Jewish the whole time. In short, my great grandmother is down my mother's line, which you may or may not know this. That's Jewish law. What determines your identity is your mother's line, not the father. Although my father's of Jewish ancestry too. Another conversation, probably not that interesting. My great grandmother was the offspring of my great great grandfather's illicit affair, it seems, in Queens, New York, on my mom's line. Now, that doesn't prove anything, but many rabbis believe that every so many generations, if somebody is the offspring of somebody who broke away from the tribe, some believe it will happen regardless of whether they're halakhically Jewish or not. Some believe that this will happen down the mother's line only. And whether they're right or not is not of my concern. I do find it very fascinating that I discovered this Peyton Place story in my bloodline, that my maternal line was broken. There was a fork in the road going into a mysterious place starting in Queens. I learned this from looking at Ancestry.com, but I ran into a brick wall, and it's not that important. I'm a Jew now. I don't need that to validate me, but I do find it like, why did I have this Yehudaphilic, thing my whole life, nagging, scratching at me from under my skin? And I have to think, even though I'm not a particularly superstitious person at all, but it is one of those, holy shit. If I end up with a lot of free time and money, I will dig further, but I don't know if there's anything to dig. If it's an illicit affair, very, very scandalous though, because my great grandfather had this first child 3 years after he married his wife, and his wife was not the mother. That means his mother took in this love child of another woman. I would, even if it was a gypsy kid, even if it was just another German, I would love to know the story. I would love to know the story. But that's, when I said esoteric thinking, to me, that's esoteric thinking. And I normally don't entertain those kind of things too much, but it's not in my nature. Whether esoteric thinking is a legit way to look at the world or not is a separate matter. It's simply not my nature. But I have to think, all through that time, had this when I encountered something where I felt that Jewish people were being misrepresented, or Jewish history was being misrepresented. It really got under my skin, no matter what era of my life I was in. What the fuck does this have to do with Donald Trump? I know. If you don't already know, you might already know. You might already know where I'm going with this. It depends on how much you follow what goes on in the world. 2014 or so, I was on, and I have no, the only thing I can figure is I must have been invited onto this from my ex Misty, because I was on an Anne Rice fan page. Now, why that's weird? I mean, I was involved in the goth scene. I still am, kind of, because I picked the black clothes out of the closet first, and once I was buying my clothes, they were always black, and it just kind of fell where it fell throughout in my my late teens, early years, and it was. So I think, so one way or another, that must have been, and I have to think it was Misty. I don't read fiction. Rare. In my entire life, I've probably read about 5, 6, 7, maybe fictional novels that weren't of any particular historical significance. I mean, I read Animal Farm twice. I don't think that counts. It's too historically relevant, you know? So I read, it's not something I typically do. I'm too nerdy for that. I'm trying to get over that, by the way. I actually am trying to pick a novel to start to kind of get over my disdain for reading something that somebody made up. My wife reads constantly, and my wife is what we're going to get into here. By the end of it, by this point in my life, I had embraced the anti-Zionist cliche talking points, which I now know to be Soviet-born, baton handed to the PLO, and then the Muslim Brotherhood, and then eventually, Hamas and the Center for Islamic Relations here, and yada yada. And I'm trying to keep this simple. I believed everything those college kids are saying in the street, verbatim. So I ended up finding a girl online in Israel, and she had commented on something that Sam Harris had said when he was on Bill Maher about Islam. If you remember, Sam Harris got into it with Ben Affleck on Islam. It's not important. She commented, and I was very impressed by how well she articulated her point of view about this and the reality of it, because I was a bit involved in the atheist movement back then, and a lot of atheists were really disappointing us because they would completely rail on Christianity, which we all did, rightly so, when it came to their hypocrisy and double standards. Some of the things I look back at, and okay, they were really petty, but that's the point. They would even pick on really petty things. But when it came to Islam, going from 2008 or 7 or 8, and then slowly they started to went from being soft on Islam to actually attacking other atheists who even so much as commented on Islam. And I was like, what the fuck is this? And she commented on that, and I like the way she said it. I like consistency in a person. This is very important for a group, for people, whatever. So this is going to be a little messy. We became friends, online friends as it is, and it didn't take long before we were arguing about Israel. We argued back and forth for weeks. 2 weeks, I think. Somewhere between a week and a half and 2 weeks. She wiped the floor with me. I wish I still had this conversation, but unfortunately I deleted this particular account. And I really regret that. I deleted it not realizing that was the one that had the conversation. But I remember it very well. And I walked away from it going into neutrality, which is what you should do when you lose an argument. You should never say, okay, you're right about everything. It's a bad thing to do. Because you don't know that. You know that you were wrong. So that's, you go back to the neutral zone. It's the best thing to do, usually. And we became, and when you win an argument with me, which I don't do often anymore, unless I really know the person wants it, that's a very good way for me to become very fond of that person. I'm not like most people when it comes to this. My ego is very well trained when it comes to this. And I accused Israel of, I'm not going to get into everything you've heard the accusations though, they're all very cliche. They're more cliche now than they were then. And it's one of those cases as if you repeat a lie enough, as Joseph Goebbels said, if you repeat a lie enough times, people will just simply believe it because it's repeated enough times. The human brain is a bitch when it comes to that. It's a very sinister reality, but and we became friends. I started flirting with her after a while. I had this weird cyber crush on her, which I'd never had before with anyone. In fact, I'm to this day very anti meet somebody online. Yes, it works sometimes, but I don't think it's the best way to meet somebody. In this case, a broken clock is right twice a day. Worked for me, but I don't normally. Plus, it wasn't a dating site either. We were just two people talking. I ended up getting into a relationship for 3 years, on and off. We broke up 3 times, so I kind of went back to keeping the talk mostly clean with her, and the relationship did not go well. It was destined not to. And when we broke up, a friend of mine, very interesting person, we don't talk now at the moment, hope we do again one day, said something that kind of surprised me. She said, what the fuck does this have to do with Donald Trump? Again, not much, but we're going to get to that because my politics are connected to this. By the time I was seeing this next girl, she was, I had become an ardent Zionist. And had good reason to be. This is the important part. Never by Zionist, I mean I supported Israel's right to exist. I knew that going before the 1967 borders would be suicide, and no one should commit suicide. It's just that simple. I'm not going to get into all the bullet points on geopolitical affairs, or else this video is going to take forever. It already is going to be too long. And I said, I remember my friend talking me into this, and she said, if you like this girl so much, why don't you go and see her? I'm like, you want me to go to Israel, to the other side of the world, just to see this girl, because I have a crush on her? Yeah, why not? I'm like, oh, okay, I got a teenage kid at home. My first responsibilities are there. I'm broke. Like, literally, I didn't go to the Mad Max festival some months before that because I didn't have the funds to do it and pay my bills. That's where I was at. She goes, you'll find a way. And maybe it was the drugs I was on at the time. Don't know. But I said, you know what, you're right. So I got in my car at about 6 o'clock in the morning. This girl used to throw parties that were like, I'll remember these for the rest of my life. And I think this was the day after one of those parties. My sleep schedule was very fucked. And I got in my car and I contacted Katrina. And I said, fuck it. I think these are my exact words. I don't know how I'm doing it, but I'm going over there to Israel to see you. And I got a passport. Never had a passport. One of the first things when my son became an adult, I made him get a passport. And I scraped up the money and took until April. This was this was October, I think, of 2018. And yeah, and I got on a plane and went to Israel, and following April. And all I'm thinking at the time is, what the fuck does this have to do with Donald Trump? All I'm thinking at the time is, okay, I get to see another country. I haven't done that yet, unless you count Canada when we were kids. I don't. I barely remember that trip. You didn't even have the passport to go there back then, and it was basically New York with funny money, you know. So next thing I know, I'm getting on a plane. Even as I'm getting on the plane, about to take off, so the layover in New York and then London, it's like, I'm friggin' doing this, you know. And I'm just thinking I'm gonna, you know, be with a girl. I have a girl with me at the time, and I'll get to see another country, and I'll have at least that. I'll be able to say I'm traveled. I came back engaged. I was like, oh, there was nothing political about anything other than I didn't want to not be with her, and I wanted to get married. I said, well, why don't, neither one of us were affiliated. She was not halakhically Jewish, her father was, and that's a little relevant here. And I wasn't at all, as far as I knew. And I says, well, why don't we get married right now? Just that way we are. And she goes, you can't do that in Israel. I'm like, what do you mean you can't do that? She goes, well, you have to be affiliated with a major religion. Otherwise, there's no avenues to get married. We don't have justice of the peace. And I was like, that's right. Europe used to be like that too. Okay, well, I guess we're doing this in America. So we got married in Tempe at a friend's house by this crazy QAnon ordained minister-ish, New Agey kind of guy. Good guy, but good God. He stopped talking to me because I challenged his belief that the Illuminati even still existed, let alone was controlling the world. And too bad, you know. I don't mind hanging out with crazy people if they're pleasant to be around. Anyway, and neither one of us have any religious sentiments to be, you know, of note, but conversations ensued, and we both decided to convert. And her attitude before that was, I'm Israeli, I don't have to be Jewish. I fought for my country. Yeah, I'm a soldier's husband. And that's it. And she really didn't care either way. And I told her, okay. Suffice to say we did. But I'm not going to get into my feelings too much because, again, it's a long video as it is. But one thing leads to another, and then I'm Jewish. And she's Jewish. And in that time, from the moment I started conversion, I already knew there was anti-Semitism in the left. There's anti-Semitism in the right too. But if you openly espouse that, the right will kick you out. You'll be a pariah. It's still that way, fortunately. We don't have the, what the fuck is his name? There was Richard Spencer, and now there's that other guy, Nick Fuentes, you know. These guys, God willing, will never be mainstream. But I started hearing those same ugly libels about Israel on the left and people openly. And it started out with just people on YouTube saying it. And over time, it became acceptable to say things about Israel and Zionism itself. And, you know, that when you say that, you are saying that this country should be eradicated, if you say you're anti-Zionist. And I saw it as early as 2000 a little. And I knew it was like, someday, if this keeps going, it's going to get worse. What the fuck does this have to do? Now we're getting close to it. I couldn't... There's a term my wife calls the Israeli burden that I now bear. And that is, you can't have a conversation without somebody declaring you the ambassador of Israel and having to answer for it. Me, I don't mind that so much. My wife's tired of it after a lifetime. And it's, oh, you could say, yeah, well, you'd be talking to somebody. You'd say, yeah, well, my dog is on his last legs. Poor creature. We love him dearly. He's not feeling so good. Yeah, well, what about Palestinians? Huh? You don't care about that. It's happened to me many times. I remember one party, particularly I'm at, where this particular blue-haired cliche, which is very common in the circles I hang out with too. That's the other thing. I hang out in circles full of left-wing people a lot in the nightlife, and my wife doesn't necessarily like to to go out at night, and I'll go by myself, even though I really try to drag her out because she needs to socialize more. And all I did is said, yeah, my wife, this and that, she's not here tonight, but something about how to do with her not driving because in her country half the population doesn't, because the country discourages it because the roads are too small. And she goes, "Oh, where's she from?" And I said, "Israel." Immediately she goes, and I'm like, "What?" I knew what, but I'm not going to let her get away with that without answering for it at least. Well, then she went through the bullet point checklist that I used to say, and I'm like, "Yeah, most of what you think you know about that is bullshit." "Why would you say that?" I'm like, "Well, start with something, and I'll tell you why." And she goes, "Well, I'm like," and I went through the whole. I don't want to get into the specifics because, again, make it short. And I asked her, "What do you know about the war in '48?" And then she goes, about how or how the land was acquired before that. She goes, "I don't." I'm like, "Okay. What about the war in '56? I don't." "Okay. What about the war in '67? No. How about '73? And she cuts me off and she goes, "Yeah, this is very condescending." I'm like, "Condescending how?" This line of questioning. I'm like, "Honey, I'm trying to find common ground. I can't actually school you on something if I don't know what you know." She goes on the settler colonialism, bam, storms out. Literally, like, I embarrassed her, but I was in good faith, like trying to find common understanding and start from there. You can't just, otherwise I'm just preaching at her. I was so pissed. I'm like, I'm being a complete gentleman. But because I was talking about things that would challenge, frankly, beliefs that her social world depended on her saying, because if you're, another time I'm stopped in the club, I said hello to somebody that I know didn't like me, because he thought I was a Nazi before. That's the golden part. And now that I'm a known, married to an Israeli and whatnot, he says, "You're a fucking asshole." I'm like, "Well, and I'm not really an asshole, but I know you think everybody." He goes, "You're a stinking Zionist asshole," or "stupid Zionist asshole." And I'm like, "Oh, Baruch Hashem." I hate to say it, but I think I just, you have to take it that way, and he goes on this, like, you're all oppressors and stuff like that. And this is becoming worse. October 7th changed every single one of us. And I don't mean just Jews. I mean anybody connected to this in any way. Changed some of us for the worse, some of us for the better, and some of it's just like a matter of perspective as to whether you consider it the better or worse. But it definitely fucked with every Jewish brain, every Zara Yisrael brain. That's somebody who's the offspring of Jews who is not actually Jewish. Anyone who knows who they are. And whether they admit it or not, I don't care. They are affected by it. Didn't really, what affected me was not as much October 7th itself. What affected me was people's reaction to it. Equivalent of, what was she wearing? I'm not going to lie. We have a dual loyalty. That's one accusation against us that we are guilty as charged. When a party allows somebody in that promulgates the idea that when a country is attacked, especially when they attack them in the most grotesque way and filmed it, hooting and hollering like frat boys in a strip club, like animals. Not even like cold, calculated stuff like the Nazis did, but they did it like they enjoyed when they paraded Shawnee Luke's naked body on the back of a pickup truck. When they took that woman bleeding from her nether regions. We all know what they did to her. It's not even a controversial thing anymore, not just her. And their response from a large chunk of the left was, yeah, but look what Israel did. Yeah, what did Israel do? I often say we, and I just generally, I feel obligated to do that. First, this party, nonstop, deals a barrage of rocket attacks into civilian areas for a decade and a half. No other country on the planet with the military capability would not have flattened the country that did that. Germany didn't even attack America. And anyone that tells you America went into that war to save us, I wish that was true. But the reality is nobody really thought there was anything to save. Nobody thought genocide was happening until it was too late. But when Germany attacked England and invaded France and Poland, we, the United States and England, bombed the hell out of Germany like no other country had ever been. I won't even get into Japan. And many more German children and women were killed than Palestinian, quote unquote. I don't recognize them as Palestinians, and there's a historical reason I say that. It is a made-up identity. I don't mind if they want to be identified that way. I don't mind if they have a state by that name if they want it. But they're not going to. You've probably seen that stupid 4-paneled map. I know because I shared that map with my now wife. No, I worked it out. I just realized. I said this. I said that I married the woman that won the argument because that's the law. It's not. It's besides the point. But Trump's done as well. I'm sorry, he has. He kept the promise of 5 presidents before him to recognize Jerusalem as the capital. This is not a small thing. He moved the embassy to Jerusalem. This is not a small thing. Everybody else was afraid of upsetting the people who want to wipe Israel off the map, and they do. When Biden, who's our ally, decided to, and I don't believe his convictions have changed. Now we're getting into what the fuck does this have to do about Donald Trump. This does not oblige you as a non-Jewish person to vote the way I want you to. I cannot be more clear. Everybody votes according to their conviction, if they vote at all. When he played both sides during a time of absolute urgency for his so-called ally, when he promulgated their propaganda and accused Israel of indiscriminately bombing, it's a lie. I can tell you it's a lie. No country on this planet has ever gone out of their way to, within reason, avoid killing civilians while at the same time finishing the war. When Harris called for a ceasefire, no chance. I don't care how saintly she's been in her life. But by the way, this has a lot to do with her husband. She's an anomaly, actually, because she's Indian, and well, she's Indian, but she's an American too. And her camp is her party. When she called, you don't know this, and it's okay if you don't agree with me on this. It's okay if you just are indifferent about this. I'm simply talking about who I am and who we are. There's this sinister call for ceasefire is worse than if we had called for anyone who would have called for a ceasefire in World War II. It's worse than this. But even that would have been pretty bad, because whether it's Hamas, whether even if the PLO had done this and not Hamas, do you really even know the difference? I don't know how much you follow it. These people, no matter what they say at the last minute when their back is against the wall, will not sleep until Israel is completely wiped off the map. And yes, they will kill every Jew that they can in the process. They've said that. To ask for a ceasefire is to ask to leave them in power. Orthodox Jews have always edged towards conservatism, Republicans. And the secular from the conservative, the reform, and the non-religious altogether. You don't have to be religious to be a Jew. If I decided to stop being religious right now, and became a Catholic, even if I did that, God forbid. But if I did, I'm still a Jew. I'm a Jew for life. So I have to say that here. It's important because a Jew doesn't have to be practicing. A Jew can even be a heretic. He's still a Jew. She's still a Jew. When she has a child, they will be Jewish. If it's a girl and she has a child, they will be Jewish. It doesn't, it's Judaism is not a religion. It has one. There's a difference. Very important. The secular were Democrats predominantly. Many of them friends of mine. I can tell you, in the ones I know, many have said that they will abstain this election completely. Many have switched to Trump. Hating the man as the day is long. We are not going to vote for somebody who has said what she has said, who has done what she has said. And considering the fact that Biden came before her, when he told us I'm not going to get into boring war details that you probably don't follow, but yes, he did it one time, but it was one time too many. And the only reason he did it is because we managed to scare him. I don't mean like we threatened him. I mean like he was not prepared to lose a predominant amount of the Jewish vote, but he withheld. America has a deal with Israel, and contrary to what you probably heard, Israel does not necessarily have the better end of the deal. We are not given anything for free. 10% discount. Sounds okay. But most of the important weapons Israel can't buy from other countries. That's the deal. We can't buy in the open market. America has a monopoly on what we can buy. We're not even allowed to produce our own weapons. I say us. I can't help it. I'm too emotionally connected. Israel cannot. Israel is the contract, the military deal that Israel has with America is not Daddy America like they keep saying. That's what our adversaries say all the time. It's not true. We are the ones that are bound to it, and many politicians in Israel have called to put an end to it. Because even though it would be a setback, a dangerous setback, it's risky, we don't like this, what happened before, what Biden has done. And when he withheld the weapons, he said, well, you're going to kill civilians. How many fucking civilians did America kill in Iraq? It didn't stop America from going into Iraq. How many civilians did America kill in Afghanistan? How many did they kill? How many, and I always go back to this, how many Germans? A lot of Germans. Even per capita more. Now the conversation's getting a little more nerdy than I wanted it to, but that's ultimately where we're at. I had leaned towards Trump before for other reasons, reluctantly. 5 years ago. You can see this transition on my Facebook page, by the way. But we'll never forgive Biden for what he did before. We will never forgive anyone that accuses Israel of something and holds Israel to a standard that no other country would be held to in their place. There's highly unlikely you know all of the details of this, and there's no way I can get into all of it in this video on the nature of this conflict. Suffice to say, whatever somebody might think of Israel, our loyalty is not blind. there are things Israel has done that Israelis and non-Israelis and non-Jews and Jews have openly criticized Israel for. But at the end of the day, this is a war for Israel's survival. This isn't just Hamas. It's not just quote unquote the Palestinians. By the way, this has helped. This in a strange way. This war has helped do good things for the Palestinians the Arab Israelis, because for a long time Israel didn't trust them, and this is building a trust with us and them that it never has. Because we thought they would have participated in the attack, and they didn't. If they had, it would have been much worse. So yeah, I am a Trump guy, but I'm not part of his cult of personality. I've never been a MAGA guy, in the sense that I've never owned the hat. I've never hesitated to criticize him, and I have many criticisms of him. But it's too dangerous for us. And yes, we're dual loyal. I'm expecting anti-Semitism to get worse, for no matter who's elected. If Trump is elected, we're going to get blamed for his election, and that will probably be true. It will be very easy for them to say the Zionists are the ones that got Trump elected, and they will probably be right. If he's not elected, the Democratic Party in its current form will coddle the Islamist propaganda. The idea that we're guilty of apartheid, we're not. We never have been. We're not guilty of genocide. That is an offensive. Like, that is a fuck you. When you have a genocidal party that had genocide in their charter, only removing it when PR was starting to catch up with them. But they still use genocidal rhetoric. They always have. They never stopped. They want to wipe the Jews out. Yes, they suck and blow at the same time. Yes, they will say, no, we're not against. But they say that when the West is looking. If you know anyone that knows Arabic, you can look at their speeches. They're lying. The idea that Israel stole the land, it's a lie. From Palestine. You've probably seen that stupid 4-panel map. It circulates a lot. I am the one that said, "What about this map?" to my wife, my now wife. And she tore that apart. The idea that they had the land and the Jews took it from them. So all roads, when somebody talks at this time right now in my life, all roads lead to Jerusalem or Tel Aviv, whatever, It's who becomes president here is too relevant right now. I don't. Harris will try to put pressure on Israel to not adequately defend itself. And there's no way. I mean, not no way she might get elected anyway, but there's no way we're supporting her. It's nothing to do with her being a woman. Oh yeah, I mentioned her being Indian. Yeah, like I said, Indians are our allies, but she's here. She's been here. She's born here. She has to be president. But it's that husband of hers, I think, is her influence. That and her party itself. She says what politicians do. They say what seems to be becoming popular, and they want the younger vote, and the younger vote has been convinced that all of this nonsense is true, and that means that they want to turn on Israel. And if they do that, they do. If they do, they do. But I'm not going to help them. We're not going to help them. If they eventually become the way they're going, because in another 10 years, a bunch of old Republicans are going to, Democrats are going to be dead, and a bunch of younger ones are going to be 10 years older. And if it keeps on going in this direction, there's absolutely no way. And I voted Democrat my whole life. If I voted I voted third party most of the time, but I voted for Obama the first time. I voted for Kerry. And that was it. Everything else was third party that I remember. So, donate me. Love you, Brenna.